Redeemed, rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, good morning and welcome to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Guys, I got a lot that I want to talk about today, but first, let me start here. And I've been talking about this for quite some time. If you've listened to my radio show, if you've listened to my podcast, I want you to understand this. If elections aren't free, nothing else matters. If elections are not free, nothing else matters. If you take nothing else from this podcast, I want you to take that. If elections aren't free, nothing else matters. There were some headlines that I'm going to get into shortly, but I want to say this. Do not take a Biden-Harris 2024 run lightly. Don't take it lightly. Don't think just because you've got Biden in the White House that is totally inept and out of his mind, and you have Kamala Harris that is totally incompetent and well above her pay grade in her current job. Don't think that they cannot win. I'm going to bring you evidence to show they can win, and it proves that conservatives have to get off our butts and get involved. All right. But first, before I do that, guys, please, I want to remind you to subscribe to my podcast everywhere podcasts are found: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble. Guys, we really want to build up our YouTube channel, The Carl Jackson Show on YouTube. Find us on social media. I'm on Instagram, The Carl Jackson Show, Facebook, The Carl Jackson Show, Twitter. I love operating on Twitter. I must admit, The Carl Jackson Show. Also on Getter and Truth Social as well. I try to interact with you as much as I can. You can message me. Probably the best place to message me is on Twitter, or best couple of places, Twitter and Facebook. And I try to answer as many messages as I can. Sometimes I just don't have the time to. So I try to read all of them. To be frank, I know that won't always be the case, but right now I can read a lot of them and I try to sift through them. So find me on social media, The Carl Jackson Show. And guys, please don't forget our sponsors. Without our sponsors, this show simply isn't possible. MyPillow.com, Mike Lindell, has built a fabulous business, American jobs, American manufacturing, giving you products that you love, products that you need. They got the new My Pillow 2.0 out that you'll absolutely love. The same great product. It's a little more sleek. It's a little more fancy. I think you'll really like it. But you can go to mypillow.com. Use the promo code Carl, CARL. All right, promo code Carl, CARL, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. But if you use my name, guys, there's so much there that's available. They've got bathrobes. You can save 30% off. They've got down comforters that are 50% off. All you have to do is use my name. You know of the My Pillow towels that I absolutely love. They're absolutely amazing. You can save 50% on throw blankets. You can save up to 70% on sleepwear. Plenty to buy there, and you know they're American made, providing American jobs, and they're great quality as well. So mypillow.com, promo code Carl, or give them a call, 800-858-0263. Use that promo code as well, or go to the website, and click on the radio listener square at the top of the page. And also, don't forget about our friends at 4patriots.com. Guys, I got to tell you, there's a topic in the news that I'm going to get to shortly here, and it contains shipping containers. I'm afraid that in time, prices are going to skyrocket on material based upon how much material or product is starting to set again as the economy shrinks, as people can't afford to buy. We've got an opposite problem when it comes to our shipping containers. Before, they were empty or just bringing few supplies, and it was costing a buttload of money. But now they're sitting packed, and they're full of merchandise that no one can buy. And so now they're having their storage fees are rising like crazy. And so that's going to force consumers like you and I to pay more. So we cannot win in this Biden economy. And that is just a true state of affairs. So guys, just be ready. Be ready. I hate to say it. I don't want this to be the case, but it certainly seems like it is going to be the case, and you want to be prepared. If you want to be prepared, make sure that your family is prepared. One thing you're going to need, obviously, to be able to live and sustain is food. Why not go to 4patriots.com and use my name, Carl, and get a deal that they have exclusively for my listeners? That is the number 4patriots.com. A food shortage could be coming, even in the U.S. I'm starting to see empty shelves again. I'm starting to see empty shelves again, despite the fact that there's a lot of merchandise sitting in shipping containers, which we'll get to. But we could experience drought, inflation, God forbid, a natural disaster in some parts of America. We see what's happening with Turkey, Syria, with that massive earthquake. But we have our own natural disasters right here in the United States. So just get prepared. You can create your stockpile of the best-selling 4 Patriot Survival Food Kits. It's not your ordinary food. It lasts for 25 years. It's superfood, super survival food, all right? So it's hand-packed in a family-owned facility right here in the USA, giving jobs to over 200 Americans. Their kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stack easily. They have different delicious breakfast meals, lunch meals, dinners. All you have to do is add boiling water, simmer and serve in 20 minutes. You're ready to go. So go to 4patriots.com. You'll get 10% off of your first purchase if you use my name, CARL. There's a 3-month survival kit that's included or there for purchase. Also, you'll get a year-long guarantee plus free shipping on any purchases that are over $97. That's 4patriots.com, the number 4, and every bit of purchase or every bit of sale that they make, a portion of it goes to charities that helps out veterans and the family members of those veterans. So give them a shout. Go to the number 4patriots.com. That's 4patriots.com. Tell them I sent you. Let's get into, I think, 3 important stories on Jackson's 5 that you need to be aware about. One I just mentioned when it comes to the shipping container. So let me just mention this real quick, just to bring you up to speed. So hat tip, this is from, who is this from? CNBC. There's a new inflation warning for consumers coming from the supply chain. All right. So the key points or the key takeaways are warehouses and distribution centers are pushing rates higher. Where are they pushing rates higher, Carl? They know we're hurting. Well, with U.S. Storage prices going up 1.4% every month or 11% year over year, they have to. All right. What's the problem? There's an inventory glut that's going to impact people like you and I, the consumer. All right. With the latest consumer price index data is due out. That's due out tomorrow. Charges to use cargo containers as temporary warehouse spaces are going up or are going to explode, according to CNBC, in the coming quarters. This, according to one port and intermodal export from construction to retail, key sectors of the economy expect pricing pressure to remain. Okay, so pricing pressure is going to remain, and I explained this. I explained this in the monologue, but I'll go into it just a little bit more deeply. All right, so here's the problem. Here's what we were facing with the shipping supplies. Right, was it last year? Pete Buttigieg's shipping supplies, the Biden Pete Buttigieg shipping supplies. Basically, during the lockdowns, we had so many products that were not shipping or could not ship, and we had these massive cargo ships that are transporting materials, but nobody was working. Whether you're talking about China, you're talking about the United States, you guys might remember the ports of LA and Long Beach were absolutely backed up. Boats were there. I mean, miles long boats were backed up to unload cargo, and there simply wasn't enough people to unload the cargo. All right. So because of that, that created so much demand in the stores, but there was no supply. You and I would go to a store. We'd try to buy bottled water. You moms out there would try to buy, formula for your kids. And I understand that's still happening, as a matter of fact. But you would try to find formula for your baby, and it just wasn't there. So when it was there, guess what? You have one good on the shelf. You've got 100 people that want to buy that good. And as soon as that good is gone, that good is gone. So what is the store forced to do? They're forced to pay more. So you have to pay more. You're going to have to pay more for what's on the shelf. That's what we were experiencing before. Now we have the opposite problem, but the same effect. So now we have too many products that are being shipped, but no one is buying like they used to in Biden's economy. So what happens? These shipping containers are essentially becoming storage containers, and these distribution centers have to essentially pay storage fees. So now that gets passed on to us. So you see the difference? That's what's happening. Here's another story that I want to bring you. Another headline on Jackson's 5. I think that's what we're gonna call it, Up to Speed. I've been playing with stuff in my head, what to call this thing. Sometimes here's a thing. Let me just let you guys in on a little secret. Podcasting is extremely different from live radio. I love live radio. I'm starting to really like podcasting, but it was an adjustment for me, admittedly, and it still is. So sometimes I sit here and in my mind, I'm like, Carl, how do I make this flow better? There's a lot more editing involved, not in what I say, but behind the scenes with Gabe to make sure that everything is brought to you cleanly. There's a lot more work involved in podcasting. When I do live radio, there is a lot of work, but the work is done right then and there. You have to go back as all of you know, with podcasting to make sure that it's available for you guys to listen anytime anytime you want. But so it's a little different. So I'm trying to figure out ways to bring the show to you, make it a little better, because that's what I want to do. That is my pledge to you, and that's my job. Frankly, I want to make sure that you're informed. I want to make sure that you're entertained, and so I want to be able to do that on a daily basis. So I'm thinking of calling the news Up to Speed or Jackson's 5. You guys let me know what you think, or maybe I'm just going to get you up to speed on the latest headlines with Jackson's 5. Actually, that sounds pretty good. So maybe that's what we'll do, unless you guys chime in. You can go to my social media sites, Instagram, Twitter, The Carl Jackson Show, Facebook. Also, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Carl Jackson Show on YouTube. All right, so here's another story that I want to bring to you. The U.S. shoots down 2 additional flying objects. All right, so now, hat tip to the Daily Mail, officials confirm the unidentified flying object, that's called a UFO, guys. So officials confirmed the UFO shot down over Alaska was able to penetrate U.S. airspace before detection as military helicopters recover it from frozen waters. It comes after sources told CNN that the military had developed a method to track spy balloons last year, but this object wasn't picked up on radar until after it was over Alaska. ABC, a high altitude according to ABC, a high-altitude object tracked over northern Canada has been shot down over the Yukon Canadian Forces, over the Yukon, I'm sorry. Canadian forces will now recover and analyze the wreckage, according to Trudeau, and they've already begun that process. Trudeau said, the little dictator in Canada, I ordered the takedown of an unidentified object that violated Canadian airspace. NORAD command shot down the object over the Yukon. Canadian and U.S. aircraft were scrambled, and a U.S. F-22 successfully fired at the object. I don't know why we have to use F-22s all the time. I really don't. I don't know if those are the only planes that we have that can reach that altitude, and I'm just not sure. But it seems to me that's an awful lot of money being spent to shoot down an air balloon. But nonetheless, that is the story. And listen, I don't have any way of proving this, but I have heard this going around, and I wouldn't doubt it, given that I totally distrust the U.S. government now. Is it possible that a lot of these quote-unquote UFO sightings have been other countries spying on us, and our military government unwilling to tell us the truth? Maybe we have experienced more Chinese spy balloons overhead that the U.S. military never told us about. Maybe we've seen some of China's hypersonic missiles or hypersonic aircraft, if you will, and mistook them for UFOs. I simply don't know. And that isn't to say that something else could be happening. I don't know if aliens exist. I don't know if God is allowing us to see something. I don't know. When it comes to aliens, I'll be honest, I don't even care. We've got enough worries, on this world for me to care about what's going on in another world. But nonetheless, I just don't know. I wanted to bring you that. Number 3, the Missouri AG begins investigation into Trans Center for putting minors in serious danger. And guys, come on, man. We all had common sense just a few years ago, but obviously with the influx of money that's coming in for people to buy into this trans craze, a lot of people are changing their values. It's amazing how some people will change their values when they get paid. So the Missouri AG begins investigations into the Trans Center for putting minors in serious danger. Hat tip to the Washington Examiner. Missouri AG Andrew Bailey called for a halt on authorizing puberty blockers for children at St. Louis Children's Hospital on Friday. In a letter to Washington University officials, Bailey addressed allegations from a whistleblower by the name of Jamie Reed, who claimed that the university's transgender center was operating irreversible gender transition surgeries and possibly permanently sterilizing children without parental consent. Bailey added that the procedures, which affect a person's hormones, have led children to attempt suicide and were often done without an individualized assessment of the child. Guys, this is common sense and we know it. We were all kids at one point in time. I think the people that are performing this stuff are just straight up evil. They were children at one point in time. They know they graduated into adulthood. They know that the same thoughts that we had when we were kids aren't the thoughts and beliefs that we have necessarily when we're adults. It makes no sense. You know, kids want to be Superman, think they can fly. I remember jumping off the roof of our patio back in Linwood, California. It was a patio that was separate from the house itself. We had this like outdoor patio with this a crappy roof that you could fall through, and my dad never got fixed. And then we had a garage that was set apart. They were all standalone, if you will. So you had the house. It was almost like a triangle. You had the house. You had this patio, which you could store stuff in. We would put our bikes in there and stuff like that. We had what was called, or my mom did, the wash house. Our washer and dryer were literally inside of this patio, and we had a separate setup for them. And then we had a totally different garage, which we stored, junk in or stuff that we used for different seasons. But I can remember jumping off that roof when I was a kid and thinking, can I fly? And I would literally get things and try to fly. Like we had this big rubber tree in the backyard, so I would piece together some things with these big rubber leaves and jump off the roof and flap my hands to see if I could fly. That's what I did when I was a kid. Now, my legs sometimes are in so much pain. If you asked me to jump out of a car, I wouldn't want to do it. Come on, guys. This stuff is insane. It is absolutely insane. There are evil people behind this, and we need to be questioning every hospital organization if they're trying to infiltrate this nonsense. And honestly, guys, with the lockdowns and hospital organizations no longer getting the money that they were from COVID, you can bet your bottom dollar a lot of hospitals that you might think are great and sacred. They could even be religious, Christian, who knows? These people want money. It's sad to say, but it is true. Here's another headline that I think is very important. And this goes to what I'm talking about today. And that is, do not take a Biden-Harris 2024 run lightly. I frankly think Biden, listen, I don't think Biden should run. And I know the left doesn't want him to run. But he's going to ultimately make that decision. They're going to do everything possible to try to force him out. But he doesn't have to leave. And frankly, it doesn't matter if he doesn't leave. I don't care what the news headlines are today. You're going to get over 45% of people that are going to vote for Biden, even if he's standing in front of them drooling. That's just a fact, Jack. That's just a fact. Biden isn't running the White House, all right? So that brings me to this headline. Hat tip, this from Washington Examiner as well. Senator John Fetterman has trouble hearing voices after his stroke. All right, so nearly 9 months after now Senator John Fetterman, it is such a disgrace that I have to call him senator, suffered a stroke on the campaign trail. The first-term senator faces lingering health challenges as he adjusts to life in the Senate. He continues to struggle with auditory processing, a job, something that you think would be very important when you're one of the 100 most powerful people in the United States. Man, making it difficult to understand the words of his colleagues. Fetterman says it can feel like deciphering the voice of it can feel like deciphering the voice of the teacher from the Peanuts cartoon. This guy is in the Senate, and he admits deciphering voices sounds like, you guys remember Charlie Brown? Remember that was the teacher's voice in the background? He has to decipher voices, and he says it feels like that. And he's in the Senate. So don't think for a second Democrats won't put Biden back into the White House. Look at who they just put into the Senate, knowing this guy was not well. They don't care, because the Democrat Party is about a machine. It's not about people. It's about a system. They don't care about the individual. They could care less if John Fetterman drops dead. They'll put in his wife or find somebody else to take his place. That's just how Democrats roll. All right. He also says, although he has been given accommodations to help ease his transition, several members of his staff have voiced concerns that he needs to take things slow. Those concerns only grew after Fetterman was hospitalized earlier this week after feeling lightheaded. So the guy gets into the Senate right away. He's feeling lightheaded. He has to spend 3 days in the hospital. But there's a small takeaway there that I don't want you guys to miss. And that is, those concerns only grew after Fetterman was hospitalized this week after. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, it's this one. Several members of his staff have voiced concerns that he needs to take things slow. See, Fetterman can take things slow because his staff will get things done. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems with Washington, D.C., in my opinion. We have too many staffers up there doing business that they know they have no business doing. And that's because they make these bills where nobody can read them unless you're an attorney. And even if you are an attorney, you're not going to take the time to read them simply because you don't have the time to read them. That's why bills need to be printed on with single subject, one-page bills. It needs to be as simple as that. All right, moving on. The last headline I want to get to before I get to the greater issue, which is why conservatives shouldn't take the Biden-Harris 2024 run lightly, and why I think they can win, frankly. And I'll just give you my takeaway on the Super Bowl. Yes, I did watch it. I don't watch football during the season. I stopped watching it. As a matter of fact, I didn't watch football for probably 3 or 4 years. After Colin Kaepernick took the knee. Admittedly, I watched the Super Bowl because I in every single one of those years, because we'd have people over to our house to just be able to, to watch that game and to talk. And oftentimes you would miss, or I would miss, a lot of the game. This one in particular, when it came to Kansas City and the Eagles, I wanted to watch, and I certainly did. I'm not a fan of the NFL or the NBA, but I admit they had some really good games in the playoffs. I watched a couple of those too, leading up to the Super Bowl. First time in years. But I got to admit, I enjoyed it. It was fascinating, and it's fascinating to see what was done yesterday. And I'm not talking about halftime. Really don't care too much about that. But before the game, it was fascinating. So I'll give you my takeaway. Last headline: the CBP catches 185 packages of fentanyl. Senator Joni Ernst says China is poisoning America. Listen, and she's absolutely right. Senator Joni Ernst is absolutely right. Although I must admit, I've lost a lot of respect for Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa because she voted for that omnibus bill right before Christmas and weakened our own house, weakened the House GOP. So I've lost a lot of respect for Joni Ernst. I thought she was a Tea Partier. She's more of a Mitch McConnell type gal, but nonetheless, she's right in this. 185 packages of fentanyl. This is dangerous. According to the Washington Times, the CBP, Customs and Border Protection, officials working at the Douglas Port of Entry in Arizona seized 185 packages of fentanyl pills from a Mexican national trying to cross the border. And we're not closing our borders, guys. See, I'm telling you, the left wants to depopulate America. That's what they want to do. That's what the climate change hoax is about. That's what abortion is about. That's what open borders are about. These people want to depopulate the earth. They believe that only elites should live and run things, global elites, and we're the peons that they get to tell what to do. They get to determine whether our lives are worthy of living or not. They want to play God, frankly. And so this is very scary. So the unnamed man's SUV was referred for secondary inspection. Authorities found a compartment in the floor of the car and inside discovered the fentanyl pills. The CBP estimates there were around 180,000 pills, weighing just over 45 pounds. I don't know how many people that could kill, but I suspect at minimum 180,000, right? Whomever takes the pill if they're laced with fentanyl. So those are Jackson's 5 for the day. Now, I want to bring you a few headlines, and then I'm going to dive into one. And I'm going to show you how Biden can win. Biden can win in 2024. Carl, how is that possible? The guy can barely walk. The guy can barely speak. We saw his State of the Union address where he was like, "Arr, arr, 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 arr." Fire Marshal Bill from In Living Color, straight up. The next day he was in an interview and he was like, "Well, I don't know." I mean, he was just coming off of the high. Whatever they jacked him up on the State of the Union address had worn out by the next day, and the guy was completely and utterly exhausted. So first, let me talk to you about this. And the reason why I'm sharing this stuff with you isn't because I want you to be discouraged. I want you to get involved. I want you to dig down deep and fight for this country. We're all going to have to do it. None of us are exempt. There was a headline in Real Clear Politics that said this. Biden set to run again, but many Democratic voters, and like a dummy, I didn't pull up the full title. But many Democratic voters have doubts. All right, so that is the headline. That's from the Wall Street Journal. I'll just read the opening paragraph. Guys, excuse me. I feel like I have hiccups from all the food that I ate yesterday. All right, Washington. This is from Washington. As President Biden prepares for an expected re-election bid, Democratic leaders are increasingly enthusiastic about his candidacy. Many of his party's voters aren't on board, however. Okay, so here's the mistake that a lot of Republicans make, because I heard a lot of Republicans and or conservatives. I consider myself a constitutional restorationist because I believe that we live in a post-Christian, post-constitutional America. All right, and so many voters have concerns. Concerns about Biden's age and abilities are front of mind for some Democrats, even those who think the 80-year-old president has done well during his first 2 years in office. According to recent polling in Wall Street Journal interviews with more than 24 people around the country who voted for Mr. Biden in 2020. Now, I know that's a small sample size, but I've read other polling where a lot of Democrats are just disenfranchised with Joe Biden. I think it's close to or upwards, or they're around 70% of Democrats that would prefer him not to run. Here's the problem, guys. It doesn't matter what they say, and that polling doesn't matter. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. It simply doesn't matter. Democrats are going to vote for Democrats regardless of if Joe Biden, again, is drooling. He could be giving a speech. He can't talk, and he'll just sit there and drool. Guess what? 45% of Democrats will vote for him anyway. Why? Because they've been taught for decades without any resistance that Republicans are evil. Without any resistance. Remember George W. Bush? Oh, we're the compassionate conservative. What the hell is a compassionate conservative? We have the more compassionate values. I mean, he freaking destroyed us by saying that. Compassionate conservative. As if keeping people on welfare is compassionate, as opposed to helping them find their God-given talents. I can't stand when Republicans say crap like that. It's just silly. It's stupid. All of us have families. All of us have loved ones. All of us care about someone. Even the darkest, most evil people in the world care about someone. I mean, so to say that is just asinine. But all of that to say, I'm telling you, Democrats don't care. This polling is irrelevant. Yeah, I know it's part of the news story. I know it's part of the headlines. But guys, I'm just going to bring you the facts. This is your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. And sometimes even Republicans and conservatives get confused. So I don't make a big deal about this polling. Oh my God, 70% of Democrats say they won't vote for Biden, or they don't want to vote for Biden. If the choice is Biden and Harris, or Trump and whomever, or DeSantis and whomever, do you know who those 70% of Democrats are more than likely going to vote for? Biden. It's as simple as that. And I'm going to prove it to you. So don't pay attention to the headlines. You can't rest on your laurels. We've got to fight to save this country. Good thing, at least right now, God forbid it ever happens, we don't have to use firearms. But let me read you a couple headlines that I want you to be aware of. And then I'm going to go into one of these. I'm I'm going to go through one of them pretty in depth. All right, this from MSN.com. This came out last week, actually, but the news is very relevant. Donald Trump excluded from prospective GOP presidential candidates donor retreat. Now, Carl, what does this have to do with Democrats? I think we're playing into the Democrats' game. All right, the prominent conservative fundraising group Club for Growth has invited a slew of prospective GOP presidential candidates to its annual donor retreat next month, with one big name left off the guest list. Now, this must have been a couple of weeks ago. They left off the name Donald Trump. The Club for Growth did. Club for Growth is known for its anti-tax and other conservative economic policies. It's set to hold its annual retreat this month now in February, in which the group introduces possible candidates to big party donors ahead of the primary cycle. Or maybe this was in early February. So I guess that's March. David McIntosh is president of the group. He told reporters the decision to leave Trump off the list wasn't a personal slight, but he noted that Republican chances to win back the House would be diminished with the former president at the top of the ticket. And he says, and I quote, "The party should be open to another candidate," close quote. Now, at least 6 likely GOP presidential candidates were invited to the retreat, including Governor Ron DeSantis, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, former VP Mike Pence, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Senator Tim Scott, Governor Glenn Youngkin. Now, listen, guys, I do believe in competition. I do believe there should be a primary process. I like Trump. I like DeSantis. I would prefer that Trump become the president again, and then DeSantis comes in. But I don't think any of that is guaranteed. And I'm not mad if DeSantis becomes a nominee. I'm not one of those people. All right. I think the fight is up to us. We can wish for a God in government all we want to take care of all our problems. That is never going to happen unless we get involved and demand what we want from the politicians. And I don't like to see Republicans and or conservatives saying we need this person and that person. As much as I adore Trump, I think that's idolatry, and I think you have to be very, very careful. Now, that isn't to say Donald Trump didn't do a magnificent job. I think he did, although I think he spent way too much damn money. And I also think it was a huge mistake to lock down the economy. It was just a bad mistake because we already knew that anybody with a modicum of common sense knew the left was going to use that to take advantage of his administration and to destroy the economy. And they were able to do just that. And to get him out of office by putting in these election things, which are coming back, by the way. And that's what I'm going to get into. But this is why this is such a mistake for the Club for Growth. It is the dumbest thing ever to exclude the former president from your meeting or from your event. The dumbest thing ever. If you want to split the Republican vote, what better way to do it, you freaking jerks, than to say we're going to exclude the former president? What better way to do it? I mean, think, like Andy Reid does with the Kansas City Chiefs when they blow it on the plate. He's like, he sits on the sideline and he's like, think, use your noggin. I mean, this is the best way to continue to divide the Republican base. Is to do stupid crap like this. Let there be a competition. Let Trump show up in front of the donors. Those donors might say, you know what? I was thinking of a new guy, but truthfully, when I hear Donald Trump again and his arguments, this is the guy I want. He deserves that chance. He's a former president. Really stupid on the Club for Growth's part. All right, now this headline: Democrats score control of Pennsylvania House for the first time in 12 years. Did you hear about this? No, this is a major story, and it just got a blip in the news media last week. And I think it's a major story. I'll get to it in just a sec. But I got to take a swig because I guess I ate too much salty stuff last night. All right, so here's the deal. This from Just the News. Very important headline. Democrats score control of Pennsylvania House for the first time in 12 years. Did you hear that? Democrats score control of the Pennsylvania House for the first time in 12 years. Why is this headline so important? Guys, the economy is getting ready to get bad. We're having a problem with shipping. This time, too much stuff has been shipped, and it is just setting, not in the ports, but setting in storage facilities where companies are having to pay storage fees, those prices are going to be passed on to us, the consumers. Things are getting crappy. The economy isn't that great. All right. So there were, 500 something jobs created last month. Everybody's clapping their hands like seals. But that didn't account for the fact that you still get about 3 million people that are out of the labor force that have not returned since the lockdowns began. Not to mention, the Federal Reserve has to cut into those interest rates to try to slow down inflation. That just proved that they're not cutting far enough. So that means they're going to have to rake interest rates even higher so that we feel the pain and that people stop hiring. Yahoo just cut, I think, of what was it, 10,000 of their workload. People are going to feel pain. And nonetheless, people are going to vote for Biden and Harris in 2024 if they run. If they run, people are going to vote for Biden and Harris in 2024. And the media, big tech, they're going to collude again, and they're doing a great job. They're going to try to sweep under the rug all of the stuff that these Republican investigative committees are finding. And Biden knows this. This is why he can give an interview, which he did after the State of the Union, and just brush off the revelations with Hunter Biden's laptop and his involvement. Voters don't care about that. Why? He's right. Because what's going to happen is the media, along with the Democrat Party, are going to work in cahoots with Biden to make sure that he gets elected. Because their morals are tied up into Biden. Their liberalism is tied up into Biden. The Democrat Party, the Democrat brand is tied into Biden. And they're not going to let that go, even if it means they have to have a dementia patient reelected. That's what Republicans don't freaking get. Pennsylvania Democrats on Tuesday claimed control of the state house. This for the first time in 12 years after sweeping 3 special elections and achieving an outright majority. All right, so here's a couple of takeaways just from that opening paragraph. Politics are local. Guys, you have to get involved. Now, it may not be running for office. I often hear conservative, you need to run for office. I don't know what gift God has given you. Maybe some of you just need to open your mouth more. All right. Maybe you need to have more community events. Maybe you need to invite young people from your church or something over for a Super Bowl. That's what we did yesterday. That's what we did. Communicating with younger people, kind of getting a sense of where they are, not just, and you don't have to. It's just in regular conversation and having fun together. I mean, these universities, the big tech, oftentimes social media sites have a captive audience of sorts, and yet those of us that are Christians or that are constitutionalists don't always have that that community anymore, since so many people are leaving the church. We don't have that captive audience. So take advantage of the opportunities you have with friends and with neighbors when you can congregate, and make sure that you share or maybe just reinforce your values with people, especially younger people. Another takeaway is the ballots matter. Ballots matter. Remember what I told you. Remember the premise. Remember my premise. What I always say, if elections aren't free, nothing else matters. We can talk about every news story. If we don't get involved in election integrity, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. We can't do anything about anything if our elections aren't free and fair. And where they aren't free and fair, but legal to do ballot harvesting, we have to be there. The column goes on, or we have to match what Democrats are doing. The column goes on. Democrats narrowly won a majority of seats in the 2022 midterms, speaking of Pennsylvania here, but a pair of resignations and one death gave Republicans a narrow edge going into the session. Both parties, listen to this, came to an unusual arrangement in the short term. So both parties elected State Representative Mark Rossi, a Democrat, as a compromise candidate for House Speaker. All right. Never trust the left. Never trust the left. Stop compromising with the left. Republicans, I don't care if you're in Rhode Island, if you exist there. I don't care if you're in Pennsylvania. Stop compromising with the left. This isn't the time. Well, more Americans want to see bipartisanship and they want to see it. Fool, you are dealing with fascist right now. My God. Rossi broke his promise, though. The Democrat broke his promise. And he never dropped his Democratic resignation. In other words, he told them he was going to be neutral. He wasn't going to be a Democrat per se anymore. He was just going to remain neutral. Oh, he decided not to do that after they gave him the power. The Democrat sweep of the Pittsburgh area special elections will split the chamber 102 to 101 in favor of the Democrats. See, the problem is the GOP play nice, but the left plays to win. Understand that. The GOP plays nice, but the left plays to win. It's time for us to play to win. We must play to win. It's as simple as that. The current House Speaker's fate is somewhat unclear, however, as Democrats are likely to nominate a more traditional candidate to lead the lower chamber. Should he opt to vote for himself, which we all know a Democrat is going to do, however, any Democratic nominee would require Republican support, assuming all legislators vote. Why is that? Because the numbers are 102 to 101. All right, so it's extremely close. They're going to try to get a more traditional Democrat. Give me a freaking break. What a joke. All right, now, but these are stories that you need to know about. These are the stories that you need to hear about. And all of that to say, we cannot take a Biden-Harris 2024 run lightly. I don't care what any conservative says. I don't care what any Republican says. If you think just because Biden is, slurring and drooling all over himself, and Kamala Harris is dumb as hell, if you think that's enough to win in 2024, you're living on the wrong planet. We saw what happened in 2020. We saw what happened in 2022 when, from all indications, things were miserable. Well, it was abortion. It was give me a freaking break. If you're dumb enough as a Republican to believe that it was abortion that stopped the red wave, give me a freaking break. Even in red areas, red states, we didn't perform as well, with the exception being Florida. Give me a break. The only place where abortion played a part is where the left was allowed to ballot harvest. And they would go onto these college campuses like they did in Pennsylvania for John Fetterman. You had the Federalists write about it. They would go onto college campuses, get women, go ballot harvest, find a bunch of young women that cared about abortion to run up their voter registration numbers. That's all they did. They ballot harvested based on abortion. But abortion in and of itself couldn't do the job. Democrats had to go out, whoop up a frenzy on college campuses and get young chicks to vote that normally wouldn't vote, despite the fact that they care about the issue of abortion. That's all that happened. So when Republicans, I think it was, I forget that lady's, Nancy Mace or something like that, said, we didn't get the red wave. No, they totally uninformed, totally ill-informed, totally out of touch. Just completely wrong on that issue. It just gets me, it gets me mad. Because conservatives always retreat. Oh, maybe it's abortion. Maybe it's our values. Maybe it's our strongest value, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we're going to retreat. We're the extremists. We're going to let them call us extremists when they want to murder babies. But we're the extremists, and we're going to retreat. God have mercy on your soul when you stand before God, if you're that freaking weak. Gets on my freaking nerve. Republicans, fight. Freaking fight. All right, Real Clear Investigations, hat tip. This article came out a couple of weeks ago. Real Clear Investigations. Listen to this. Big philanthropy advances as a big player in the private funding of public elections. Huh? What does that mean, Carl? Big philanthropy. In other words, Zuckerbucks is back for 2024. Now, it isn't Mark Zuckerberg, but it is a group that he worked with in 2020. And they're back. And they're back with a vengeance. If elections aren't free, nothing else matters. Pay attention to what's going on locally. So in the face of more organized conservative resistance, just like Zuckerbucks in 2020, more private money is being poured into public or Democratic elections offices, and even some Republicans, frankly. Have you heard of the Audacious Project? Not Veritas. I think I think James O'Keefe is making a comeback there. Apparently, over the weekend, there were donors that said, "Hey, we're going to put a stop to this. We're going to halt this." So hopefully, James O'Keefe will retain his position as the founder CEO of Project Veritas. All right. So anyway, the Audacious Project. This is a nonprofit profit group. Whose supporters include the Gates and MacArthur Foundation, Bill Gates, the wonderful evil man that he is, and the Bridgespan Group, a consultant whose clients include Planned Parenthood. Oh, some really nice people that like killing babies, has committed $80 million to a progressive organization, the Center for Tech and Civic Life. That's the group that Mark Zuckerberg helped to fund in 2020. So the Center for Tech and Civic Life to provide grant funding to run local elections. So again, a nonprofit group called the Audacious Project, whose supporters include the Gates and MacArthur Foundations and the Bridgespan Group, a consultant whose clients include Planned Parenthood, has committed $80 million to a progressive organization, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, to provide grant funding to run local elections. It's happening again. This is the same group that Mark Zuckerberg funded. Here's what the Center for Tech and Civic Life does. So they send operatives to local election offices, examining their practices and their equipment. All right. They acquire the sorts of data that are coveted by political campaigns. All right. And that may mean, oftentimes that'll mean who isn't voting. So you may have a bunch of registered Democrats in an area, or Democrats that just haven't voted in some time. So what will happen is these groups will collect that data, find out who's voting, who's not. They'll just mail them a ballot. That's the goal. Just mail them a ballot. People that wouldn't take the initiative to vote, Democrats that wouldn't take the initiative to vote because they're uninspired like Joe Biden, these people will send them a ballot, and then ring, ring. Phones don't really sound like that anymore, but I guess you can make your cell phone. They got different apps. You make your cell phone sound differently, whatever. So they get a call from this group because they've now sent out a mailer with a ballot, a ballot basically, and said, hey, why aren't you voting? And then they say, hey, Republicans are evil, racist, sexist, homophobes, bigots. We need you to get out to vote. Otherwise, we're going to lose. And so that person that wasn't motivated to vote, that Democrat that wasn't motivated to vote because they see Biden and they see Kamala Harris, they hear her saying something that's dumb as hell that even Democrats think is dumb as hell. And they're like, I'm not voting for them. But and then CTCL calls them and says, wait a minute, Republicans, sexist, homophobes, bigots, racists, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay, let me get out and vote. That's what they do. That is what they do. And they're at it again. All right. So despite public claims of transparency, the article says, this is from Real Clear Investigations, the center has refused to provide basic information about its operations. All right. So you can't assume that just because Elon Musk is exposing big tech and the deep state connection, that the left will sit still. They're not going to do it. They're going to double down. That's exactly what they're going to do. That's exactly what they're doing. They're doubling down. Why? Because it doesn't matter who's in office when it comes to the left, or I would say the Democrat Party, because I believe they're synonymous. It doesn't matter if John Fetterman is hearing different voices. It doesn't matter if he's hearing the Peanuts teacher in his head when people are speaking to him. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Joe Biden forgets things 5 minutes later, 2 minutes later, probably. It doesn't matter to them because they've got a system in place. All they do is plug and play. Who's the next idiot we'll use? We being these global elitists, the Bill Gates of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, the World Economic Forums of the world. Who will be the next idiot that we'll use, the useful idiot, to implement the policies that we want? Not that the people want, not that you and I want, that they want. That's all Biden is. He's a placeholder. That's all Fetterman is. That's all Kamala Harris is. They're all placeholders. CTCL is the same group again that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan supported in 2020. They funneled hundreds of millions of dollars to local elections offices, and mostly Democrat. They tried to give they wanted the appearance that they were donating to Republicans too, so they will donate to Republicans a very tiny amount, and they will donate to Democratic centers a huge amount, like tenfold. That's what they would do. That way it couldn't be said, well, we're not donating to both. And frankly, no matter how much they were donating to Republican or Democrats, it shouldn't be accepted. It's supposed to be illegal. Here's the good news and bad news. All right, so here's the good news. 24 states, 12 counties have prohibited elections offices from accepting the money. So 24 states and 12 counties have prohibited election offices from accepting the money. All right, here's the bad news. Democratic governors in 3 of the states selected to be part of the CTCL initial membership group, Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Michigan, overrode legislation that banned private funding, meaning we want that Zuckerberg money. This time it's not Mark Zuckerberg. Again, it is the group that Mark Zuckerberg helped to fund in 2020, and that is the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL. So who did that? Which states did that? Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Michigan. Can you say bye-bye in the 2024 elections for Republicans? These states are going to be as if they weren't difficult to win before. They're going to become virtually impossible for Republicans to win if Republicans aren't doing ballot harvesting, get out the vote efforts, whatever they got to do to match Democrats. They're going to be impossible to win unless Republicans can build a game plan and an apparatus to do so. Here's something from the Alliance for Election Excellence. All right, so the CTCL, again, in April, created a consortium called the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence, whose 6 partner groups include the CTCL, and they're intertwined to specialize in different aspects of elections, according to Real Clear Investigations. For an annual fee, the consortium offers assistance to election offices. They provide online tutorials, they provide consulting, and they provide other services on an as needed basis. So they have a basic membership plan that costs a municipality $1,600 a year, or they have a premium plan if you want to do heavy duty cheating. I mean, if you need heavy duty consulting, that costs $4,800 annually. I mean, both of the prices, when you think about it, are an absolute bargain for destroying the country. Now, here's what you get for the basic or premium membership. Trip off of this because there's not a lot of difference. Both subscriptions offer consulting, coaching, and conferencing, and belonging obligates the member to, quote, make non-monetary but highly significant contributions to the broader activities of the alliance. It doesn't matter what membership you have. These include attending events put on by the CTCL, created alliance, and sharing of materials. Virtual conferences begin in January, one described as a, quote, debrief, close quote, of elections officials from the 2022 election designed to, quote, inform preparation, close quote, for the 2024 elections. See, the CTCL is proactive. All right. They reached out to elections offices, inviting them to be a part of the alliance. Oh, man, which will bring together election officials, designers, technologists, and other experts to help local election departments improve their operations. So great of the CTCL. So great of them. Here's the scary part. It received inquiries from over 90 jurisdictions in 31 states. Don't tell me that Biden can't win in 2024. I don't care what Democrat voters say. It's not even up to them. It's not even up to Democrat voters anymore. These fools have a system in place. Approved applicants get a visit from the CTCL representative. A contingent that includes Jennifer Morell and Noah Prates, leaders of the elections group. They always have great names, which works on election issues alongside progressive stalwarts such as Protect Democracy and the Brennan Center for Justice. Oh, listen to this. Ultimately, 10 election offices, including several in swing states, were selected after on-site visits by the CTCL. Isn't that amazing? Of the election offices selected by the center, voters in 6 of them supported Joe Biden. That means 4 jurisdictions may want to override this nonsense. Here's an example in Greenwich, Connecticut. Officials in one of the chosen towns, Greenwich, Connecticut, a former GOP stronghold that has become a Democratic enclave, had concerns about working with the CTCL. When residents read that its elections offices was tapped to receive $500 in grant money from the CTCL, a member of the town's legislative council sent an email to the center seeking more information. That information included, quote, audits of the group's books, a copy of the group's annual report, and its conflict of interest policy. Now, the CTCL refused to provide any of those documents, insisting that auditing its financials are conflict, or insisting that its audited financials and conflict policies, are, quote, not publicly filed documents. This is according to some chick by the name of Sophie Lehman, that she's the group's assistant director. Now, even though the CTCL, listen to this, in their 2021 tax returns claims financial statements and its conflict of interest policy are, I quote, available to the public on request, close quote, but they're really not. Lehman's refusal to respond to the request of residents prompted some residents, sadly, unsuccessfully, to rally against accepting the money altogether, which was approved in a town meeting this month with a 104 to 101 vote. You see how that works? Adios, voters. You mean absolutely nothing. The elites are running the show. So if we want to get money, from these people, money that shouldn't be coming in, money that we shouldn't accept in the first place, we're going to do it because it's going to help us win, because we know that all we have to do with you dumb behind voters is tell you that Republicans are racist, sexist, homophobes, anti-LGBTQ, the whole nonsense, and you're going to vote for us anyway. That's what happens. Some of this money was even given to Republicans. Quote from Michael Spilo, a GOP member of the town's council. He said, I would be against the money, even if it were the Koch brothers giving it. I don't think private money should be involved in it at all. It seems like a really bad idea. Here's what Real Clear Investigations Open Records request showed, however, that before a September visit, the CTCL emailed the town's voting registers asking them to prepare certain materials. We are collecting data. This is a quote from the CTCL in an email. We are collecting data on your operation setup and equipment to help Alliance partners better understand who you are and how you operate. Now, they gave up the ghost. The Greenwich Register, Fred DeCaro, sent an email to an assistant asking her to prepare materials for the CTCL team to review, including, listen to this, sample ballots, maps of polling places, voting books, trouble reports from poll moderators, and electronic poll books. Guys, I could go on with further examples. For the sake of time, I will not, but suffice it to say, Cali and Wisconsin accepted money. Illinois is expected to get a $2 million grant between this past December 2022 and December of 2023, all in connection with the 2024 election. The same is happening with Michigan. So don't think for a second that Biden and Harris can't win in 2024. Don't think for a second that these polls actually matter. 70% of Democrats would prefer a new candidate. But what the polls don't tell you is that even if 70% of Democrats didn't get a new candidate, they will vote for the moron in the White House anyway. And we all know that's true. Guys, if elections are not free, nothing else matters. That's why election integrity is so important. We got to stop playing nice. We have to stop playing nice. We have to meet the left mano a mano. I'm not talking about violence, but when it comes to these election games, we have to meet them mano a mano. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. Don't forget my sponsors, 4patriots.com. God bless you. MyPillow.com. 4Patriots, guys. You're going to need some survival food because the crap is about to hit the fan, as some people would say. Go to 4patriots.com. That is the number 4patriots.com. Take advantage of their deal on the 25-year survival food plan. Hand-packed in a family-owned business, 200 employees. The kits are compact, they're sturdy, they're water-resistant, and they stag easily. All you have to do is go to the number 4patriots.com. Use my name, Carl, you'll get 10% off your first offer. This includes a 3-month survival kit. You'll get a year-long guarantee, plus free shipping on orders over $97. And don't forget, a portion of every sale goes out to help charities that help veterans and their families. Go to 4patriots.com. Use my name, Carl. The same is true with mypillow.com, Mike Lindell's fabulous organization that creates American jobs and American products. mypillow.com. Use the promo code Carl. They got MyPillow 2.0 out that you'll love. I told you about all the other deals that are available to you if you go to mypillow.com. Click on the radio listener square. Use my name. Take advantage of any of those deals. Up to 70% off in some cases. Great products that are going to make your life a little bit better. So make sure you check them out. All right. And make sure you follow me on social media. The Carl Jackson Show is where you can find me. YouTube.com. Please subscribe there, rate, review. Let me just say this quick in closing, because I forgot to mention it. Something that I thought was very telling of the Super Bowl performance yesterday. And Gabe, what did you say? What did you say about this? You made a very fascinating point, and I forget it, but it was no, it was something else that you said, and I was like, I hadn't thought about it in that light. If it pops back to you, let me know, or we'll talk about it tomorrow. But he made a great point, and now I hate that I didn't write it down, but sometimes that happens. But I will say this. I was shocked at how patriotic that event was yesterday. Now, I know they sang the Black National Anthem that actually divides more people than it unites, but yeah. Oh, right. Okay, so that's a great point. Now, he said aliens, but let's put it in this context, and I promise I'll close out with this. What I saw yesterday with the NFL was shocking to me. It was so patriotic. It was like the days of old. It was almost as if we were putting out a front. The NFL was. Too bad the United States government didn't do this, or perhaps they played a part. I mean, obviously the military is involved with the NFL, but did we just put on a united front for China? I mean, seriously, think about it. I was shocked at how patriotic that event was yesterday. Absolutely shocked. So maybe they're just trying to gain back even more fans that left the game, stopped watching, fans like me, who admittedly tuned in yesterday. But it was a very good point by Gabe. So anyway, that was extremely telling to me. Obviously, it was a good game, but that was extremely telling. Yesterday was one of the most patriotic Super Bowls that I think I've ever seen, that I definitely remember. Maybe it's because I haven't watched in so long, but anyway, that's my take on that. All right, guys, you know where to follow me. You know where to get your products, mypillow.com, 4patriots.com. Until next time, don't go where you're doing good. God bless you.